A new positional coach, a whole bunch of new names. Why Boston College's offensive line could be the biggest surprise at camp this spring.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. I've been covering Boston College for over a decade. If you're looking for Boston College news, analysis, and details on your Eagles, you are in the right place. Locked On BC is a free daily Boston College podcast available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. On today's show, Earl Grant wins his 10th game of the season, but talks crazy after the game. I'll explain what his comments were and why. I have no idea what he's talking about. We'll get into the offensive line. What's the biggest upside player on this group? But who could be the biggest surprise? And we'll get into who the starting five could be on this offensive line. Let's get into it. So the storyline about the offensive line going into camp, we're getting ready for the camp, which opens up in just over 2 weeks, is that this whole group, other than Michael Crounse, is going to really be a whole new group of starters heading into the 2026 season. You lost Jude Bowery, Logan Taylor, Kevin Klein, and Eric Doherty for various reasons, whether it's graduation or the transfer portal. Even backups, Ryan McCow is gone. Now you have guys that are going to need to step up, and you have transfers. And the exciting part of all of this, the part that I'm very interested to see how this all kind of meshes together, is that the big storyline is there's a new offensive line coach, as Kurt Anderson, who was with UMass last year, but was with Northwestern and has had other stints at other places, I think Arkansas as well. He's coming in. And word on the street is that Kurt Anderson is a excellent coach to coach up younger players. I've heard great things about what he can do in terms of taking these kids that have really high upsides and teaching them and supporting them as they develop. So I think, the difference between what he does and what Matt Applebaum did is going to be striking. I think some people might be worried that, that the last offensive line coach that BC had that wasn't Applebaum was Dave DeGuglielmo, and he was a complete disaster. But you look at what Kurt Anderson did. He was with Northwestern for a while. He was with Arkansas for a while. This is a guy that wasn't bouncing around like a Googs did, right? This is a guy that has been established. He has done his thing. So he's got a good pedigree to him. And I know the staff is, Bill is very excited to have him on his staff. Now, who is Kurt Anderson going to have to work with? Well, first of all, BC went out and went crazy in the transfer portal. First of all, they brought in a ton of new names. You can just go down the list off of BC Eagle Insider, excuse me, and go down every transfer that they're bringing in. You start off with Trayvon Humphrey from North Carolina Central, Kristian Phillips, Michigan State. You have Vigore John-Jamal from Tennessee State, Reggie Jackson, Jacksonville State, Owen Snively, Eastern Michigan. And then you have Johnny Norwood, UNC. And I feel like I'm missing one. No, I'm not missing anybody. But those are all your new guys. You have a whole new crew. And that's not even the freshmen. That's just the transfers. You're bringing in freshmen like Merrick Jin, Dean Ruxnitis. You have other offensive linemen like Mark Antunez from, Catholic Memorial. You have Lawrence Ayalakui from Roosevelt in New York, Bruno Warner from England by way of Germany, by way of England. Like, this whole crew is going to be crazy different. Now, all the freshmen are late arrivals. They haven't, none of those guys are going to be early enrollees. So you really don't want to talk much about them in terms of what they're going to do as freshmen, because we're just discussing what the camp is going to look like. But the piece with the transfers that I think is really worth talking about is how many of them have a lot of experience, have played, they have started, or they, played huge roles at their school. You have Reggie Jackson, who started last year, Chris Phillips, who was going to be the starter at Michigan State before he got hurt. You know, we're going to call him VJJ from now on. That's John-Jamal. He started as a redshirt freshman for Tennessee State. Like, all these guys have experience. That's the big difference between the Amir Johnsons that came in last year and what you have this year. You have a lot of guys that have played, and you're going to meld them with, Pape, who, by all accounts, I believe will be a starter this year. You have Michael Crounse, who, trial by fired the center position after Dwayne Alex struggled last year. And then probably Robert Smith at your other guard, who was a true freshman last year and showed some good growth there. So you have all these guys, and who will be your starters? And that's the big question, right? That's going to be the question during camp. Who ends up getting those, O-line one reps? Because if there's one thing at one position that they usually like to do is to kind of get that solidified as soon as possible, because it's all about communication, knowing where you're going, where the guy next to you is going. It's not one like wide receivers where you're going to be like cycling guys in and out, or linebacker or whatever. Offensive line needs to gel. So this could be found out pretty quickly. And believe me, unfortunately, if they find it out, I'm sure we're going to be the media that covers it is going to be sworn to secrecy until Bill announces it himself. But if I was a betting man, if I was to guess who will be the starting five on the offensive line, I'm going to go with Robert Smith and Kristian Phillips as your guards, Michael Crounse as your center, and then at tackle, Pape probably. This is a guy, scouts at 247 loved him, seeing some of the stuff that, just his size and what he could grow into. And he started to show pieces of it last year. Maybe he'll take that huge jump. You'll have him probably at right tackle, and at left tackle, it's gotta be like Reggie Jackson or VJJ, John-Jamal. If I was a betting man now, I'd go with Jackson right now just because he's established more. But John-Jamal was someone that a lot of schools want. I heard he had a lot of interest from Big Ten and SEC schools. And so he could, it's all going to be based off of practice, right? Which of these guys have better practice? So I feel confident with my other four. That last tackle position will be really interesting to see who they get there, who ends up kind of jumping up to get that. So that's my starting five. And I think the piece that I want to say too, that I am interested in making my, first little prediction. I'm going to tell you in just a moment one thing I think about this group, and you'll be surprised when I talk about it in just a moment. Welcome to the 5-hour energy flavor draft with 18 different flavors to choose from, including new options like confetti craze, fruity rainbow, or cotton candy. There's something for everyone. The board that's set, the flavors are ready, and I've got my number one pick for the 5-hour energy draft, and that is the fruity rainbow. It's a bright blend of assorted fruity candy flavors. Listen, I love 5-hour energies when I go running. When I do a long distance run, it's the best, and fruity rainbow is one of my favorites. It's playful, fruity, multi-fruit taste profile, and sweet, colorful finish that lingers nicely. Now, if you haven't checked out them, you need to make sure you get over to 5-hour energy, because they give you shots with a boost with zero sugar. It has lots of upcoming flavor innovations planned. I love to see a lot of different, they always come up with crazy new stuff. And I think they're going to come up with some new stuff too that you're going to really like. So find out your new favorite flavor of 5-hour energy shots, available online at 5hourenergy.com or at Amazon. The biggest stretch of the college basketball season is almost here. Buzzer beaters, bracket busters, and those unforgettable moments that everyone's talking about the next day. Being there live for something like that, that's bucket list stuff. The hardest part is actually getting tickets. Long queues, prices jumping around, and surprise fees at checkouts. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage with constant innovation. It's how you unlock amazing tickets and experience in just a few taps. The seat view feature is a game changer. You can see a panoramic view from your seat before you buy. I love being able to follow teams in the app. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Locked on BC, AJ Black here. And if you have not checked out the Everydayers Club, you need to check it out now. I'm going to have a first cup with AJ chock full of not transfer portal, recruiting news and updates that you're going to want to know about. I'm going to talk about the latest names, who's taking official visits, my thoughts on these guys, where I think BC stands. If you haven't checked it out yet, sign up now. You get that. You get access to text from me. I'm going to start giving some good ones this weekend with basketball and hockey going. You'll be getting a few more than you did during the week. You get newsletters. You get a whole bunch more. Just check out that link below, and I hope to see you all over there. Now, I was teasing a surprise that I'm thinking of for this upcoming season from the offensive line. And before I had used this as this discussion as a player who could surprise. I'll get to one in a minute on that, but I want to say a surprise that I'm going to predict for this offensive line just in general. And I think this offensive line will play as well, if not better, than they did last year. And here's why. I think they're going to have a new set of eyes on that line. I like the idea of having a new coach there. And there was something, I know that they played well at times, but I just never was sold with the offensive line last year. You had Jude Bowery, who, when he was healthy, was fine. But were you ever watching him and going, man, you got a mauler there? It just seemed underwhelming at times. Logan Taylor always hurt, and it's just a physical position, but he was always banged up, so it was always hard there. You played Dwayne Alec for a couple of games, and that was a complete disaster. Then you had Michael Crounse, who's learning the position. That was tough. You were playing true freshmen at one spot. I don't think and then you had Kevin Klein, who, I mean, just be realistic, he didn't have the highest ceiling and was, very replaceable. Let's just leave it at that. I look at this group and I see great potential here. I really like, as I said before, Pape Sai. I mentioned on a show earlier this week that Sai is a tackle who just picked up this game a couple years ago, excuse me. He's from Senegal, went over to England, learned the game. And watching him at camp as a true freshman versus a redshirt freshman was like watching two different players. He honestly, as a true freshman, looked like he was playing with two left feet. Like, he just looked completely out of place, really, really raw. And then you get to redshirt freshman year, and that step in development was huge. Now, if he takes another good step, he's going to be good. He's got huge size, and I've heard good things about just his technique and what he can do. So I really like him. Same thing with Michael Crounse. Like, he's a center. Is he perfect? No. But he's, again, getting his first opportunity at that position. And with that opportunity, he may take another good step forward. So I like what he brings. And then all these younger players like VJJ, for me, I have it up there as he's my guy with the biggest upside. Like, athletic, huge size, picks up things super quick. Like, there's a reason why a lot of big schools really wanted him. And I'm not just saying that because I heard it from the staff. I heard this from 247 national guys too. Like, there was a lot of schools that wanted him. And BC was able to hold off, like schools like Mississippi State and stuff like that. They really wanted him there. So my biggest surprise for this year is going to be that this offensive line is going to be better than last year. And again, I'm very excited to see how much cleaner things get with Kurt Anderson there, or even if it won't be cleaner. I had this gut feeling it will be. And you have all these guys, you're deeper than before. And I love the chance now that, like, you're looking at certain positions and you're going, oh man, they've got a bunch of guys here. Like I just mentioned with that tackle spot, where there could be a bunch of players that jump up and take that. You have a guy, I didn't even mention, Judah Pruitt, who is like right on the fringe of playing at guard. Could he jump up? I mean, could he get up there and get that second guard spot across from Kristian Phillips. Like this is where their work in the transfer portal. This is one position where I said they did a really nice job of building depth, and I think they're going to be in good shape there. So hopefully for that running back room, with Evan Dickens and Nolan Ray, like you've got, hopefully an offensive line that will be big, physical, and athletic. And I think that's going to be the biggest surprise. Now, in terms of upside, I mentioned upside here. I I there's a bunch of guys that I think have really good upside. Mitch Wolf is going to have in the morning a full scouting report, but one thing he told me about Reggie Jackson was, he was watching the film. Mitch is a big film nut, right? He's watching the early film because I don't get it. What he's not really physically, all great there. His feet don't look great, heavy feet, and he was worried about it. And then he sent me a message like a couple weeks later and goes, "Oh, I didn't tell you. I finished watching his tape, and he came along a lot." So there's, if he developed at Jacksonville State that much, and think of it, like Jacksonville State doesn't have a lot of like strength and conditioning, they can get him even bigger. That's a good sign. You got VJJ, right? Kristian Phillips, who, again, he needs to stay healthy, and I think it's been knees twice. We've been playing with offensive linemen in the past that have been snake bitten a bunch. Hopefully, this is not the case. It was just a fluke injury here or there, but if he stays healthy, that's a huge upside. That's what this whole group shows to me is upside all over the place. And I haven't even talked about, the Trayvon Humphreys and Johnny Nowards of the world, who are guys that, feel like afterthoughts, but are there. Like Humphrey played all last year for NC Central, and Norwood is a high upside ACC player. So like there's a lot there. And the upside I think is biggest is VJJ, but I'm not selling low on any of these guys right now. It's just a group that I really like a lot. And we'll talk about other positions. I'm not telling you I love everything. I just told you about quarterbacks I was worried about. There's other positions that I still am worried about, but offensive line, just to me, it just feels like it's going in the right direction and that they've got things lined up the way it should be. There's a lot of change, and I get that can cause anxiety because you never know what you're going to get from your coaching with new coaches and new players. But just the profiles of the players that they brought in, the profiles of the guys that they brought in from various different places, whether they're ACC schools or Big Ten schools or even lower schools, it all melds well to bring a group together that could be well. And honestly, I'm going through all this, and I'm I'm missing a guy too, right? I should mention that Amir Johnson, from Merrimack last year. He's in his second year, and they liked him a lot last year. I'm not sure where things are going to stand for him this year, but as an interior guy, maybe he's someone that's battling the Kristian Phillips and the Robert Smiths of the world. So there's a lot of different battles that are going to go on at camp. We'll have all the details as long as practices are open. And thank you all. In our final segment, I got to get to basketball again. And I promise you this show has not become the rip Earl Grant every chance I get, but especially after a win. But he said something on Wednesday that made me scratch my head and go, what is he talking about? I'll get into what that is in just a moment. Coast Pay is giving Locked On College listeners up to $2,000 credit for your business when you get started today. If you manage a crew, construction, HVAC, landscaping, any operation with trucks on the road, you already know how messy gas and materials spending can be. Cards get shared, receipts disappear, and month end turns into a headache. Cost Pay fixes all of that. Cost Pay is the modern fuel card and expense management tool built specifically for fleets. Fuel, maintenance, materials, all in one card with real control and instant visibility. Early transactions show up in the moment it happens. No surprises. If someone fuels up at an odd time or tries to buy something outside their limit, you'll know instantly with real-time alerts so you know who's spending what and where. And fraud protection with employee check-ins by text, no shared PIN. It's built for operators who don't have time to chase paperwork. And unlike old fuel cards, there are no contracts or commitments, just smarter expense control. Right now, Coast Pay is offering our listener up to $2,000 credit when you get started at coastpay.com/lockedoncollege. Go to coastpay.com/lockedoncollege to see how you can earn up to $2,000 credit. Terms apply. The Coast Visa commercial credit card is issued by Celtic Bank. All card accounts are subject to credit approval. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black here, wrapping things up. Thank you all who have checked out Locked On BC. And this week has been a lot of evergreen talk. And when I mean evergreen, I'm talking about things that you can listen to it any day. We're talking about different camp previews, recruiting, Earl Grant's job security. Check out all the shows from this week. If you missed a few, go back in our archives. They're right there for you. I hope you check it out. And you can pause this show and come right back to you. I'll be waiting here for you. And hopefully I'll see you on one of our other shows as well. Now, on Wednesday, BC snatched victory from the jaws of defeat by beating Wake Forest at home. Now, there was allegedly 2,000 people at this game. It looked closer to like 1,200, but who's arguing? And it was the most BC game ever, as I said on yesterday's show, as the Eagles had an 8-point lead with, I think, a minute and a half left. It dwindled down to 5, and then they were losing after 6 points in like 20 seconds, and somehow won the game. So it was great that they won. I'm not going to take that away. The players looked ecstatic. It was a great moment for those guys who have busted their butts all year. But again, it was one of the most Earl Grant games in the world where you had a game that you had won and you just let it completely fall apart, except this time you actually were able to pull it off. Still, it's just like poorly coached basketball, right? Like, they gave up a 3-pointer after giving up another 3-pointer on a botched inbound pass. That has nothing to do with NIL. That has nothing to do with resources. That's just poor basketball. That's all that is. Well, after the win, and they got to go do their celebrating, which they deserve. Again, not bashing them for that, right? They had their press conference, and Earl Grant was talking, and he made a comment that I have to address. He said he was asked about the future, where he thinks the school is at, and he said, "I feel great." He explained, "I've been here for 5 years. My job was to come rebuild the program. That's what I did. We had great success, great wins, and now we're navigating through a storm." Okay, I get it that he has to sell the program for a bit. Believe me, I get that that's part of his job. But in front of no crowd for like the 20th time this year, other than like 2 ACC games, it's been dead at every game. The students don't go anymore because no one cares. You're saying that you rebuilt the program. BC itself has won, I had it in front of me just a second ago. They've won like 6. They've won 7 ACC games in the past season. They're 22-38 in the past year, just overall. That's rebuilding. What about anything that's going on with this team has said that they've taken any step forward? If you look at the record that they have, they've gone gradually backwards in every metric that you can think of. Wins down, ACC wins down. They had 1 year where they had Quentin Post. They made it to the NIT, and every year since then, they've gone down. And yes, some of this has to do with the school. It has to do with institutional support. I totally agree. If you're going to say that part of this is on BC, totally agree. But how many games this year ended like last night, where BC had a lead and just watched it go away? Like, I just felt last night it was going to happen again. And the way it ended was like, oh, great. But like, you should have not even gotten to that point. So I have a hard time hearing him say with a straight face that his team is going in the right direction and that he has rebuilt this program, because he has not rebuilt this program. Right now, BC is fighting to get into the ACC tournament. They're in the bottom 3 in the conference. They're in the bottom 3 last year because they also didn't make it into the tournament. Listen, basketball is not a long-term rebuild type of thing. It's, what have you done for me lately? You have 8 guys that you play. you basically lose most of your rosters to the portal every single year. And so he's not rebuilding for very much because look at the roster he's playing with now. You have Donald Hand and Fred Payne and Luca Taves, everyone and Jaden Hastings, and everyone else is all new guys, right? That part I have a hard time believing. He talks about great wins. You beat UVA once. Over the last 2 years, I did some research on my article on Eagle Insider. This year, he beat Steve Forbes on the hot seat, Adrian Autry from Syracuse, hot seat, and Jeff Capel from Pitt, hot seat. Last year, he beat Miami, fired their head coach. Florida State, I think they had either an interim or they had just let go of Leonard Hamilton. Like every win has been against, and Mike Young and Virginia Tech, hot seat. Like in the last 2 years, you do not have great wins. You've beaten a bunch of bad teams, and then you get blown out by everybody else, or you lose close games against teams that you could have beaten. I don't know what he's talking about there, because if there were great wins, the fans would be there, but there are not great wins. It's bad. I just keep saying, I heard this and I thought I was taking crazy pills. I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, he's not going to go out there and say, I've done a terrible job. But there's another coach out there, Bill O'Brien, who just went through a 2-10 season, and he did not put lipstick on a pig. He has said over and over again last year was bad. He did not say that they're building in the right direction from that season, or they had great wins. No, it was bad. And there's a way to say what Earl Grant wanted to say without burying himself, but also not like trying to gaslight everybody. So I listened to this, and he continued on too. He said, our job is to try to win this year, finish the season strong, see what that looks like, and then take the information we got to say, okay, how do we take the next step? How do we get BC back to where it belongs? Well, I gotta say this. The answer is without you, man. Like, he's already tried to evaluate. You know, BC hasn't had a good shooter in years. Like, you don't have a good offensive set. You have Donald Hand taking a step backwards. Like, the defense is inconsistent. The offense is awful. Like, it's at that point now where the next step and what you need is a coach. You also need a program that actually cares about the school that cares about the program. And like, you need a coach that can win you basketball games. Again, I go to Joe Gallo. He's going to be my binky. He just finished a season at Merrimack where he went undefeated at home. Tell me what your favorite home win of this season was. I don't know. I mean, Harvard, I guess. I don't know. So that's where things are at. And so to hear him say this, it does feel like gaslighting. It does. It feels like he's trying to pull one over on us. And you know, I was going to give him a pass after last night on my daily rip him until the season's over thing. And then he goes out and says this stuff. Like, then I got to address it because this was a comment that blew up online and fans are rightfully upset. Like, this is silly. And BC has not taken a step forward. They have not been rebuilt. It feels like we've taken 3 steps backwards. It's about where things were with Jim Kristian. Like, we just feel like we're kind of running on a hamster wheel at this point. So, as I said, you know, where's the next steps? It's probably going to be without Earl Grant, but we'll have to wait to see what happens. They played Miami on Saturday, and I think Miami needs that to like stay in the hunt for the ACC title. So they're going to be gunning hard for BC. They're not playing a terrible team like Wake. Thank you all for listening. You can follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. Check me out on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, and TikTok. And I hope to see you guys again soon for another episode of Locked On Boston College. We'll be back again on Monday. We'll be talking. I think we're going to have Mitch on to talk. Sorry, I jumped too quick. I think we're going to talk about the combine. So far, Quintavious Hutchins went. It didn't go very well. We'll have much more to talk about there. And so make sure you check us out. And we'll see you again soon for Locked On Boston College, your team every day.